It all began at a subway station. A guy walked up to the platform and noticed a girl with a guitar. She had purple hair, was sitting cross-legged, and had her head tilted toward her phone. A guitar hung over her shoulder. This wasn't the first time he'd bumped into her. The one thing that always stayed the same was the guitar on her back. He thought about how she was out late again, realizing they would both be catching the last train of the night. With the guitar always with her, he wondered if she studied music, played in an indie band, or maybe was a street performer. The girl felt his gaze and looked up at him, moving the hand she'd been resting her chin on. Realizing she'd noticed him, he turned back to his phone, embarrassed he'd been staring while lost in thought. He considered how they often ended up sitting there together, but it seemed like only he noticed. That made him feel a little disappointed. He told himself it was just a coincidence, not fate, that they kept meeting at the same place and time. Lost in thought, he decided he needed a distraction and chose to listen to some music. Looking at his phone, he saw the song Dark Planet by Long Afternoon and hesitated over whether to play it again. He pressed play anyway. No matter how often he listened, the intro still felt just as great as the first verse. For a moment, he wondered why so few people knew such a good song. He wished he could talk to someone about it. The sound from his earbuds seemed faint, and he thought they might be broken. He turned up the volume, not realizing he had set it to maximum. Suddenly, a loud voice interrupted the music. It was the girl with the purple hair and the guitar. She leaned slightly toward him. He hadn't expected it and quickly pulled out one earbud. She asked him to turn down the volume on his phone since she could hear the music from far away. At first, he didn't understand how that was possible, but then he realized the headphones weren't even plugged in. While he tried to fix the connection, the girl casually remarked that he seemed to really like the song. She already knew the answer, then mentioned that she knew the band Long Afternoon too. The guy was pleasantly surprised. His eyes lit up at the thought that someone else knew the band. He jumped up, overwhelmed with excitement, saying he was a huge fan. The girl confirmed she knew the band, a bit surprised at how enthusiastic he was. He continued, saying he'd never met anyone else who liked them because they weren't widely known. She explained the band had few fans because they didn't promote themselves or interact much with their audience. He agreed and said that if they ever performed live, their videos would go viral. He added that Long Afternoon never posted anything and that their Instagram only had a drawing of a character named Yukon. Without looking at her, he said the band would probably gain more fans if they shared photos or personal moments. The girl, tilting her head, asked whether he thought the artist should show his face. He replied that it wasn't necessary, and she turned back toward him. He looked at his screen and added that although he'd like to see the artist someday, it was nice that the musician lived the way he wanted. He said it was totally fine to focus only on art and that staying anonymous was normal. He concluded by saying he liked Long Afternoon just the way it was, and the girl smiled at his words. Suddenly, she asked whether they had met a few times before. He was surprised she had noticed that too. He decided to pretend he hadn't noticed, not wanting to cause confusion, and said he wasn't sure. The girl seemed a little disappointed and said she had thought he knew. A train was arriving at the station. She turned back to him, smiled, and mentioned she had seen him looking at her. He became flustered. He kept turning the thought over in his mind, wondering if she had really seen him or knew he was watching. Back at work, the memory made him suddenly shout and cover his ears. The cafe owner ran up and asked if anyone had made a raiding attack. In despair, he asked what he should do, fearing he might be accused of stalking or something worse. The cafe owner, Oh-Yoo-ju, was confused at first, then asked what he meant. He told her everything that had happened. Oh-Yoo-ju calmly replied that the girl had probably noticed him too. Scratching his head, he said he was afraid he might have left a bad impression. Oh-Yoo-ju asked if he would keep going somewhere where someone like him always stood around. Most people would have avoided that. Then she advised him to talk to the girl next time and find out what she really thought of him. Being a fan of romantic dramas, Oh-Yoo-ju added that if everything went well, it might turn into something more. But the guy said he didn't want that. The woman asked if he liked the girl, but he denied it. He added that it wasn't the kind of feeling she was talking about, and loving someone right now felt like a luxury to him. He was about to graduate from university, so he was busy preparing to look for a job, and at night he worked to cover his rent. The guy explained that he had just been wondering why the girl always came home so late and what she was up to. But Oh-Yoo-ju insisted he was interested in the girl, though Lee Yeo-woon continued to deny the cafe owner's assumptions. He added that he'd be happy if they could just be friends, someone he could talk to about his favorite music. The woman continued her train of thought, saying relationships often begin when you least expect them. Yeo-woon grew annoyed since that wasn't what he meant, but the cafe owner told him to calm down and get to work on the next order. Later, on his way to the subway, the guy wondered whether the girl would be taking the last train again. He wanted to apologize. He hoped to talk to her about Long Afternoon. It wasn't easy finding someone else who liked that band. When he arrived at the station, he saw that the bench where he usually sat was occupied by a sleeping old man. Now he couldn't sit on the neighboring bench and start a casual conversation with the girl the way he had planned. He felt stuck. Just striking up a conversation out of nowhere would be weird. He didn't want to make the first move. He didn't want to create an awkward misunderstanding that would push them further apart. He decided this evening would pass in silence. But suddenly, the girl asked if he planned to just stand there. He asked what she meant, and she responded that the train wasn't coming for a while. Was he really going to keep standing? Nervously, Lee Yeo-woon said there was nowhere to sit. She looked confused and asked what he meant by that. Then, pointing to the open spot beside her, she said there was room and suggested he take a seat for a bit. He hesitated, uncertain whether to sit down. A memory of a similar moment flashed through his mind, but that was in the past. They were just going to sit briefly before the train came. In the end, he took the seat beside her. The girl asked what he did that kept him out so late, catching the last train home. Yeo-woon was surprised. He explained that he worked an evening shift at a cafe. Sometimes the owner let him go early, but other nights he had to stay late. She wondered aloud whether he was a student since he worked part-time. He confirmed he was. He mentioned he was in his 4th year, and the girl asked if he was preparing to enter the workforce. He nodded again. She remarked that it must be tough, working so late and studying too. He asked if she also worked late. The girl said she had been hanging out in a music studio. She added that the rehearsal space and recording studio were connected, and office workers often booked it at night. She said that as a studio manager, she sometimes had to leave at the last moment, sometimes without even sleeping. The guy was intrigued, even a bit nervous, but a slightly awkward silence settled between them. She broke it. She asked how he had found out about Long Afternoon, since he didn't seem like someone with time to search for music. She was curious how he had discovered such an obscure artist while juggling night shifts in school. He admitted he hadn't been searching, it was more of a coincidence. Then he began explaining how it happened. He'd gotten sick once, and since he lived alone, there was no one to take care of him, so he just lay in bed. It was quiet at home, and the silence made him feel down, so he decided to play some music, whatever came up first in his feed. That's how he discovered Dark Planet by Long Afternoon. He liked the melody from the first time he heard it. The more he listened, the more he enjoyed everything about the song, especially a line that went something like, "Let it be." He felt like it was comforting him, telling him not to worry and to just rest. Then he fell silent. After a moment, he asked which Long Afternoon song was her favorite. There weren't many, but still. Turning away slightly, she said she also liked Dense Planet, and Tidal Flow was pretty good too. Lee Yeo-woon's eyes lit up again. He said he loved that one as well, especially the part where the rhythm changed after the chorus. The train was approaching the station. The guy noticed how late it had gotten, and the girl was already getting up. As she walked away a bit, the girl said that the way he described the feelings he got from the lyrics, she thought Long Afternoon would probably be happy to hear that personally. Funny enough, the guy agreed. Lee Yeo-woon wished he could talk with her just a little longer. That didn't mean he wanted a relationship or to get close. He just felt a bit sad he couldn't keep talking about the things he liked, so he decided to introduce himself. But the girl didn't respond to his words, so he asked again if she would tell him her name after all. After a brief pause, she introduced herself as Shin Hae-in and added that next time, he should at least say hi. The guy was glad. It seemed she said that because she liked talking with him and didn't mind chatting again. When Hae-in got home, she thought about their conversation. She recalled all the times they had crossed paths. She remembered one time when a wallet had fallen from a sleeping man's pocket and Yeo-woon had picked it up and tucked it back in. Whoever he was a good person. She'd known he was kind even before realizing he was a dedicated Long Afternoon fan. She wondered, if she told him she was Long Afternoon, would he be happy? Or would he turn out to be like everyone else? Shin Hae-in recalled how she had been bullied in school because of her music and how people had left hateful comments about her online. She came to the conclusion that those who liked Long Afternoon appreciated the music, not her personally. There was no reason to reveal that Long Afternoon was actually her. She would simply keep making good music. It didn't really matter that people admired and loved the character Ukino. Not her. She could remain Shin Hae-in. It would be nice to live a life doing only what you love, living the way you choose for yourself. The very next day, she was at work, sketching a new illustration style for an Instagram post. A group of friends came up to the front desk. Shin Hae-in asked if they had just come out of room A. They said yes, and then one of them asked if it was possible to reserve the same room again for the next Monday. Then, blushing, one of the guys admitted he had noticed her for a while and asked if she could give him her number. Shin Hae-in stayed silent in response. Then the guy apologized, clearly disappointed by her lack of reaction. After the visitors left, she went to clean the room. Her uncle, the studio manager, entered. Shin Hyun-sung, live engineer, had also been present during the rehearsal, which he said wasn't too demanding. He asked her why she had just turned the guy down. He seemed like a decent guy. The girl wasn't thrilled by that. She asked why he was spying. He replied that he'd just happened to see and then repeated his question. Eventually, Shin Hae-in answered that she didn't like phone conversations because you couldn't see the person's expression. Then she added that she wasn't into that guy's band at all. Her uncle asked if that was really the main reason. He then let her know that the 10 p.m. booking for that day had been canceled, so she could clean up and head home. Looking at the clock, she saw it was only 8 p.m., so she decided to work on a new song instead. Returning to the room, Shin Hyun-sung took a gift bag out of his backpack and handed it to her. It was a day when men gave gifts to women, so he couldn't ignore his niece. Inside was a box of candies. He told her it was something to enjoy with coffee while working on her new song. She didn't say anything in response, but asked if she could stay a bit longer to practice on the guitar. Meanwhile, Yeo-woon was getting ready to leave. The cafe owner thanked him for the good work and wished him a romantic walk home. He had already arrived at the subway station. Yeo-woon realized he hadn't had much time for anything since the semester started. Opening one of his notebooks, he remembered he was supposed to improve his language scores during break, but something had distracted him. Turning around, he saw Hae-in. He was happy to see her again. They exchanged greetings, but something caught his eye. He noticed the gift bag in her hand. He remembered it was the white day. Sitting next to him, she noticed what he was looking at and explained that someone had given her a present. The guy thought to himself that she probably had lots of admirers. She was likely surrounded by good people. Maybe they were the ones giving her gifts. He had no reason to worry about that. And yet he did. Hae-in interrupted his thoughts and asked if studying was difficult. Without waiting for a reply, she handed him the bag. She said sweets were good for the brain. But the guy didn't understand why she was giving away her gift. Hae-in explained that she didn't like sweets, and even if he refused, she'd just throw them away. He felt awkward and said it didn't feel right. Another guy gave her that, and now she was offering it to him. She didn't get what he meant and replied flatly that the gift came from her uncle. She was a bit upset that Yeo-woon had seriously thought she was handing him something given by another man. He eventually took the bag and, seeing the label, asked if it was chocolate. Hae-in called him dumb in her mind. But instead of saying that out loud, she replied that she hadn't tried it yet, but apparently it was handmade caramel. She added that it was candy either way, so he should eat some while studying. It'd help his brain function. Taking one candy from the box, he said that since it was handmade caramel, she should have a few too. Then he added that since her uncle had given her the gift, she should at least try it. He handed her the box. She sighed and agreed, saying that if she didn't share her thoughts on it tomorrow, he'd be upset. Shin Hae-in asked Yeo-woon to give her one and then opened her mouth with a playful sound. He was embarrassed. Was she expecting him to feed her? Hae-in said she'd been oiling her guitar and didn't get a chance to wash her hands. She didn't want to eat with dirty hands, so she asked him to just place the candy on her tongue. She'd take it from there. As he unwrapped the candy, Yeo-woon said she could have just taken it home and eaten it later. But he agreed anyway. He left the wrapper on the side he was holding, reached over, and did exactly what she asked. Suddenly, she pulled back sharply, startling him. He asked what happened. Chewing the candy, she said it was really sweet. Then she told him to try one himself and judge just how sweet it was. Putting the candy in his mouth, Yeo-woon agreed. She added that it was so sweet it gave her a headache. Then Hae-in recommended pairing the candy with coffee or bitter tea to balance out the sweetness. The guy agreed and said he'd do that. Then he offered Hae-in another candy, but she declined. The next morning, the guy woke up to his alarm feeling like he had only slept for about 30 minutes. After turning off the sound, he debated whether he should eat breakfast or just skip it altogether. Then he noticed the box of caramel Hae-in had given him the day before. There were still a few pieces left, right? He took one but instantly regretted it. It was way too sweet. Still, maybe that was good, since it woke up his brain. A notification sound from his phone distracted him from his thoughts. He was surprised. Who was texting this early? Looking at his screen, he saw a notification that Long Afternoon had posted something new. For the rest of the day, Lee Yeo-woon was full of energy at work, wishing everyone a great day and spreading positivity. Oh-yoo-ju noticed and asked if something had happened to put him in such a good mood. Yeo-woon said yes. His favorite musician had posted something new on Instagram. His eyes were glowing. It had been forever since that happened. Judging by the post, a new song was probably coming soon. What would it sound like? Just thinking about it made him feel like he was on cloud nine. He doubted he'd even be able to sleep. Oh-yoo-ju was disappointed. She had hoped it was something romantic, maybe a step forward with that subway girl. The guy said it was a step forward, but not like he liked her or anything. There was nothing going on between them. He added that they recently talked, introduced themselves, and on White Day she gave him a gift. Oh-yoo-ju's eyes lit up as she started asking for details. Who made the first move in the conversation? He calmed her down, explaining that he just said his name and asked for hers. Oh-yoo-ju was thrilled. She asked what happened next. Did he at least ask her out for dinner or drinks to thank her for the gift? Embarrassed, Yeo-woon replied that nothing happened after that. Oh-yoo-ju was disappointed, saying it was totally lame. She said that if he had been a bit braver, they could have been discussing it over drinks tonight. That annoyed the guy. He told her his personal life wasn't her business. She shot back that it was, between them. Just then, a customer approached the counter and asked for a cappuccino. It interrupted their brewing argument. Yeo-woon thought the customer looked familiar. He mentioned this to the cafe owner, who glanced at the guest. She said it was Sung Hyun-jae, an indie singer and songwriter, then added he was a regular customer. Oh-yoo-ju said she hadn't known who he was until the girl who worked the day shift told her. The guy realized why the man had seemed familiar. One of the most popular musicians was a regular at their cafe. Meanwhile, Sung Hyun-jae was walking to his car, scrolling through the music charts, when he came across Long Afternoon. He liked the hidden identity concept and the musical style. He made a mental note to reach out for a collaboration. Meanwhile, Yeo-woon was heading to the subway station, hoping to see Hae-in. She had probably seen the Long Afternoon post, too. He wanted to talk to her as a fellow fan, about the Easter eggs in the Ukino illustration the artist had uploaded. Then it hit him. Being able to talk openly about the things you love really was a great feeling. At the station, he noticed Hae-in wasn't there again. They hadn't seen each other since White Day. Maybe she was busy or her schedule had changed. Or had he done something wrong and now she was avoiding him? Maybe she didn't like how he reacted to the gift. Once again, he had let himself hope, only to feel let down. Suddenly, he heard a voice behind him asking why he looked so down. It was Shin Hae-in. She greeted him. He told her he hadn't expected to run into her today. She asked if that was why he looked so gloomy. He didn't understand and asked what she meant. She repeated the question. Was he upset because she hadn't been there? Yeo-woon said yes, but something felt different today. He looked at her with a slight blush. Oh, now he got it. He asked if she'd been drinking. She confirmed and asked if it was obvious. Sitting on a bench, she said she had been working hard on something lately, and it was almost finished. So she let herself have a glass of wine alone at an izakaya. The guy asked what she had been working on. She put her finger to her lips in a shh gesture and said it was a secret, which flustered him badly. Yeo-woon was stunned. She looked cute when she smiled like that and honestly looked beautiful when tipsy. But he decided it was better to change the topic. This time, he needed to be the one to lead the conversation. Yeo-woon decided to ask if she had seen the new post featuring Ukino on Long Afternoon's Instagram. He was about to continue, but the station announcer interrupted, saying the train was arriving. Already? He hadn't even gotten to say what he wanted, and now they'd be parting. It would be too noisy to talk on the train. Clutching his head, the guy wondered what to do. There were so many things he wanted to discuss with Hae-in. Soon the Easter eggs would be gone, and there'd be nothing to talk about. If he wanted to talk, it had to be tonight. Yeo-woon got an idea. He suggested to Hae-in that they grab a drink together, but the arriving train was the last one for tonight. Still, the girl agreed and added that she didn't feel like parting ways just like that tonight. They got on the train. Every time it started moving, their shoulders would lightly brush. It made Yeo-woon nervous. But why? Was he some kind of teenager? Maybe he was just excited to have a drink with someone he hadn't seen in a while. Suddenly, the girl asked where he lived. Yeo-woon replied that he gets off at Dong Station. Why would she ask that? Hae-in said they'd drink there, since he still had to go home. The guy asked how she'd get home then. She replied that she was an adult and could call a cab to get home just fine. The guy said he'd give her money for the taxi later, but Hae-in said it wasn't necessary. She'd pay for everything. Then, with a sly smile, she added that he should just take care of her if she gets too drunk. She wanted to whisper something in his ear, but the announcer said the train had arrived at their station. The girl asked if he lived in this area. The guy confirmed that his one-room apartment was 5 minutes away on foot. While walking, he suggested they go somewhere near the station. There was a bar he'd been to a few times. The girl agreed, saying she'd go wherever he suggested. But when they got there, the bar was closed. The guy started to apologize, but Shin Hae-in said there was no need. It wasn't his fault. Yeo-woon said he'd find another place, pulling out his phone to search for nearby spots. He hadn't been drinking lately, so he wasn't even sure what was open nearby. He scrolled through places on his phone. He was afraid he'd pick a bad spot. He didn't want to ruin even a short meeting like this. Noticing his nervousness, Hae-in said it was already late and there was nowhere to go. So there was only one option left. Then, smiling, she said Yeo-woon definitely knew where it was. He didn't understand at first. The genius yet simple decision was made. Buy drinks at a store and head to Yeo-woon's place. After taking off her shoes and walking in, the girl noted that it looked pretty nice for a studio apartment. Lee Yeo-woon silently thanked himself for cleaning up last week. Otherwise, this would have been a disaster. But his thoughts were interrupted by an unexpected question. Shin Hae-in asked if he was seeing anyone. The guy asked why she was curious. She replied that she didn't want any misunderstandings after tonight. She asked him to say no. She didn't want to come off as some crazy girl barging into a taken man's home. Yeo-woon got a bit flustered hearing that and said that truly he wasn't seeing anyone. No girlfriend or anything like that. Hae-in said that in that case, she could drink without worrying. He asked if he should be the one worried instead. Lee Yeo-woon asked if she had a boyfriend. The girl, blushing, said she has someone. Then Hae-in added that his name was Liam. He was a foreigner, sharp-tongued, a good singer, and knew how to fight. The guy cautiously asked if drinking with her alone was such a good idea, given the situation. Hae-in admitted she was joking and said she thought he'd get it. Liam was the lead singer of Oasis. Yeo-woon got a little annoyed at her since it scared him, and he wondered if he'd offended someone without meaning to. Hae-in raised her bottle and proposed a toast. She said they should drink to no one getting hurt tonight. After a few bottles, they were feeling comfortable with each other. Yeo-woon showed her the new Long Afternoon post. He said that based on the 4 objects in Ukino's illustration, it was clear a song would be released in April. He added that one of the items was a ukulele, which might mean it would feature in the song, or a guitar. The girl pretended to be interested, but when she drew it, she hadn't put that much thought into the symbolism. Yeo-woon said he was thrilled to have found these Easter eggs in the new post. A new song in April. Just imagine. The girl started thinking. The song was recorded, but she hadn't planned to release it in April. Should she rush? Suddenly, the guy said that her voice really resembled Long Afternoon's, slightly raspy and hazy. But then he chuckled and said, of course, Long Afternoon's voice was cleaner and better overall. Hae-in remarked that he really liked this singer. She hadn't thought they'd talk about him the entire night. Yeo-woon thought she was bored, but she said it was cool, and better than ruining the mood with serious talk. Hae-in added that she wasn't a fan of heavy conversations, so he could keep talking while she lay down for a bit. But the guy said that wouldn't work. If she listened to him talk about his favorite singer, she'd fall asleep eventually. But Hae-in asked what was so wrong about her listening and deciding she might want to stay at his place. Yeo-woon figured she was joking again about sleeping over and asked her to stop teasing him like that. But the girl said it was up to him to decide if she was joking or being completely serious. If he asked her to leave, then it's a joke. But if he let her stay the night, then it's serious. She asked him which it was, a joke or serious. Hae-in waited for an answer while Yeo-woon silently thought it over. Then he replied that he hoped she was serious because he had the day off tomorrow and wanted to talk some more. The girl unbuttoned the top button of her jeans. The guy thought she was undressing, but why? Choking on his beer, Yeo-woon asked why she was taking off her pants. He looked embarrassed and confused. Hae-in said she just unbuttoned the button because the beer had bloated her stomach, so she did it to be more comfortable. Yeo-woon asked if she wanted some change of clothes. The girl agreed to the offer, adding that it would be great. Getting up, he added that he had just recently fixed his sports uniform. It was loose, so it should be comfortable for her. While Yeo-woon was looking for clothes in the closet, the girl noted that the last bottle of beer was finished. They drank it all. Then he said that while she changed, he would go to the store. He was nearby and would get a couple more bottles of beer. Getting ready to leave, he asked if she needed anything else, like a toothbrush, but she said she had hers. However, She asked if he could buy that one thing for her. Then she added that, thinking about it, it was getting close to the date and she didn't bring anything. She was speaking in riddles. The guy didn't quite understand her, but decided not to ask again. At the store, Yeo-woon looked at the shelf with pads, hoping that by that thing, she meant those. Yeo-woon had never bought them before, so he didn't know which ones would suit Hae-in. He couldn't even turn back and ask. Yeo-woon still chose some pads, and coming home, he called Hae-in, but she didn't respond. Entering the studio, he saw she was sleeping. Hae-in was working on something and probably finally relaxed. Placing one hand near her head, the guy leaned over her. He asked her to sit up a bit so he could cover her. Suddenly, Hae-in put her hand on the back of his head and pressed so that their noses almost touched. Looking into his eyes, she said he was handsome and definitely her type. Then she let go of him and fell asleep. Yeo-woon was impressed by the girl's actions. He thought Hae-in was talking in her sleep. He almost fell on her. A little more, and it would have destroyed the last remnants of his common sense, which barely coped with the intoxication. Here, he was powerless. If Hae-in had continued hugging him like that, he wouldn't have been able to push her away. Yeo-woon was lying on the small sofa. He understood that kindness does not necessarily lead to a good result, although the pull of the heart cannot be stopped. In the morning, Yeo-woon woke up with severe neck pain. Getting up, he realized Hae-in was no longer in bed. He thought she had probably gone to the bathroom, but next to the small sofa lay a bag with a note on it. She wrote that she didn't want to wake him because he was sleeping so sweetly and thanked him for buying that thing. The guy was surprised that she had collected the scattered bottles and thrown the clothes she slept in into the washing machine. A few days later, they met again at night at the metro station, waiting for the last train. A bit nervous, Yeo-woon carefully asked the girl if they had anything they should say to each other. He was about to say something, but the girl stopped him, asking if she could speak first. He agreed. She started by saying there was nothing much but wanted to warn that she would keep her distance for a while. Then she added that she felt too uninhibited around him, especially the last time they drank. Perhaps it was because she had spent a lot of time in childhood with her uncle's band guys, discussing music. She communicated with him without caution and at some point, without realizing it, crossed the line. Therefore, she would keep her distance from Yeo-woon and try to find a suitable distance for both of them. The guy tried to grasp everything she was saying, but still asked what exactly Hae-in meant. The girl, blushing, said she felt disgusting for what she did that night. She crashed into someone else's house, took someone else's clothes, lay on someone else's bed, sending the owner to sleep on the sofa. Drunk, Hae-in was unaware of anything, and when she woke up, she was ashamed and ran away without saying goodbye. The guy always thought she was cool and confident, that Hae-in was one who didn't care about others' opinions. And now she regrets, is ashamed, and apologizes. It's unexpected. Maybe that's why she seems so cute. Hae-in said that in any case, she behaved badly, which is why now she wants to keep her distance. If she stays close, it will happen again. The girl said she wouldn't come to the station for a while. Turning around, Yeo-woon shouted that she couldn't do that. Hae-in asked why she couldn't do it. He replied that he said a new song, Long Afternoon, would come out soon, and he really wanted to discuss it with her. The girl wasn't stopped. She said he had seen how she behaved when she drank. It could happen again. Hae-in was nervous. She was worried that next time she might do something worse than that night. But Yeo-woon calmed her down, saying that everything she considered improper, he would accept, no matter what it was. The guy asked her never to distance herself. The announcer informed about the arrival of the last train. Hae-in cheered up and asked if she could choose the snack next time they went to his place. They must drink again. The guy agreed. Hae-in asked him to save the beer he bought the second time. Coming home, Hae-in thought it was good that Yeo-woon wasn't offended. She had worried he might hate her. Even if Yeo-woon forgave her for being rude, those shameful actions wouldn't disappear. She regretted it. The girl decided to distract herself, take a shower, and continue writing songs. She had done some work in the studio. She received a message from Sung Hyun-jae. She wasn't sure if it was his real account. Hae-in was nervous. He wrote that he liked her music and wanted to propose a collaboration. Totally unexpected. It was too unexpected for Hae-in. She got anxious and didn't reply to Sung Hyun-jae's message. The next day, she was rehearsing in her uncle's studio, lost in thought about the artist's proposal. Her thoughts were interrupted by Shin Hyun-sung. He knocked on the door and asked how much longer she'd be there. He said he wanted to order held tteokbokki for dinner. Her uncle crossed his index and middle fingers. Just like her uncle, Hae-in crossed her fingers excitedly and said that it was a great idea. With his order in hand, her uncle was enjoying the tteokbokki, but Hae-in was still deep in thought about the singer. Shin Hyun-sung told her to eat the tteokbokki before it got soggy. That snapped her out of her thoughts. But as she picked up a skewer, she thought she couldn't delay replying forever. She needed to make a decision soon. Not understanding the look on her face, he asked if they weren't spicy at all, and maybe they should have ordered different ones. But Hae-in said it wasn't about the tteokbokki at all, then told her uncle what had happened the night before. Shin Hyun-sung was surprised that Sun Hyun-jae had offered to record a song. He added that it was a great opportunity. The girl replied that she was nervous, and the man asked if the singer had proposed difficult conditions. Hae-in answered that the thing was, he's a successful musician. So after their song, she wouldn't go unnoticed. He asked if she was afraid people would start recognizing her. She reluctantly confirmed her uncle's words. He could have just said something like, "Don't worry about it," but he couldn't carelessly say that to Hae-in. She had been through a lot. He knew the pain she had felt and the scars it left, scars that still itched. He wanted her to overcome those wounds and spread her wings. From a musician's perspective, Hae-in was talented. After thinking for a moment, he suggested they meet in person and talk. It was better than sitting around worrying. Shin Hyun-sung added that he was also a musician and could understand her concerns and maybe offer some advice. Even if the collaboration didn't work out, it would be a great opportunity to get to know each other better. Hae-in thought it over. He added cheerfully that she could even get his autograph, which they could use to promote the studio. On her way to the station, the girl started thinking about it again. In fact, she'd planned to practice guitar today. She wondered how celebrities and her favorite rock stars dealt with living under constant scrutiny. What kind of courage does it take to withstand that kind of pressure? If only someone could share that courage with her. Arriving at the stop, the girl noticed Yeo-woon smiling strangely, so she asked what he was doing. The guy said he had attended a special job training program and was reviewing interview materials. He was practicing facial expressions. People say a natural smile leaves a good impression. Hae-in was curious about the brochure. The girl took the brochure from Yeo-woon and was amazed by how much needed to be prepared for just one interview. The guy replied that it wasn't even the only thing he had to prepare to be interviewed for a job. He had to come up with a story that matched the company and imagine himself according to current trends. Hae-in suggested he try answering without avoiding eye contact with the interviewer. He asked if they'd practice here. Hae-in said it was simple. She'd ask him any question from that bench and he had to answer it. If he looked away, he'd lose. The guy blushed, but it was pointless. There were only the two of them at the subway station. Yeo-woon said he'd answer briefly. They sat on separate benches, and the girl announced they were starting. Seeing his serious face, the girl realized she hadn't seen him like this since they met. Surely, when he attends a real interview with that seriousness, he'll face a world that tries to push him away. She wondered how he'd look in a formal suit with his hair neatly styled. She really wanted to see it. She got so lost in thought, she forgot to ask Yeo-woon a question. He reminded her that he was still waiting. Hae-in finally asked when was the last time he kissed someone. He shouted that a company wouldn't ask that. They both jumped to their feet, and Hae-in said interviewers could ask anything. This also needed practice. Playing along, Yeo-woon said he'd report this company to the Ministry of Employment and Labor. Hae-in kept the game going, saying he wasn't a good fit for her company anyway. He refused to continue. Then she added that he had already done what was required, so she'd pay him for the interview. Taking out a guitar pick, the girl handed it to the guy, saying it was her lucky charm. She added that if he took it with him, he'd do everything perfectly. It carried the energy of her training. The guy thanked her, saying he would definitely take it with him to the interview. Then everything would surely go well. That evening, while Sung Hyun-jae was working at his computer, he received a message from Long Afternoon. She proposed to meet first for an interview and asked for an autograph, as her uncle had requested. Hyun-jae assumed that interview meant an in-person meeting. He considered Long Afternoon to be unique. The next day, Hae-in stood in front of a large glass building. It seemed this was where they were meeting. She wondered which floor the studio was on, but a man's voice interrupted, asking if she was Long Afternoon. It was Sung Hyun-jae. He greeted her, introduced himself, and asked if it had been difficult to find the place. The girl replied that she navigated easily using maps. He answered that he got confused since the streets looked alike. Then Sung Hyun-jae asked if she had come alone. He thought Hae-in would arrive with her band. The girl explained that she usually works and travels alone. The others only help with recording and arrangements. Hae-in added that they all have solo careers, and their drummer is still a student. So basically, the band is just her. Looking at Shin Hae-in attentively, the guy suggested they talk in the studio and invited her inside. The singer asked if he could keep calling her Long Afternoon. The girl replied that her name was Shin Hae-in. Then she added that he could call her whatever he liked. Hyunjae said he'd use her name then. Once upstairs, the guy explained that the company's meeting room was under renovation, so they'd use the studio. He wanted to show her the demo track anyway. The girl was stunned. Did the whole building belong to him? He said he had only rented a few offices. He wasn't that much of a celebrity, after all, to afford buying an entire building. But he was setting up a company to promote artists. If all went well, he'd be able to buy the building. But the girl replied without emotion that working with a label was cool. Hyunjae didn't expect that reaction. He thought she'd be interested, but it seemed she was confident she could succeed on her own. But the girl had spent all night working on lyrics, so she was very sleepy. Maybe that's why she reacted that way. Entering the studio, Hyunjae offered her drinks to choose from, but Hae-in politely declined. Instead, she suggested they discuss the collaboration plan right away. They both had tight schedules. Taking out a folder, he handed her the documents and said she could ask any questions freely. While reviewing the contracts, the girl said she already had one question, probably one she'd thought of for a while. She asked if she would be required to participate in concerts or promotional events with her face uncovered. Hyunjae replied that it was up to her. She could keep hiding her face like now, or take part in public events. Then he added that he wanted to collaborate with Long Afternoon, not for commercial gain. He genuinely wanted people to discover this talented artist. It was a heartfelt wish, as a fan. Hyunjae suggested they listen to the demo. As he sat down at the computer, she thought about his words. She was going to refuse if he insisted on live concerts, but he seemed fine with her choice. Was this a fake offer just to get her signature or genuine concern? Her thoughts were interrupted when he said he was playing the demo. Music played from the speakers. Hae-in liked the song, but suddenly asked Sung Hyunjae to stop it. She asked if the whole plan was for her to just be the vocalist on a song that he wrote. The guy confirmed and asked if she didn't like the music. She said that wasn't the issue. This was supposed to be a collaboration. It should blend both styles. The girl asked if she could use his computer. Taking a guitar and sitting at his desk, Hae-in said she would delete all unnecessary audio tracks. Nervously, Hyunjae asked her not to delete them. He hadn't slept for 3 nights gathering material for the demo. His song was perfect. But if she messed with it without reason, it would lead to failure for both of them. But her fans liked more than just the songs. They liked her style too. So there was no way she'd give it up. Watching Hae-in play guitar, Hyunjae thought. He knew she was inspired by shoegaze and post-rock. But he didn't know she could do such arrangements. She hadn't compromised or abandoned her style. She simply brought her own world into the song, showing her individuality. He was captivated by her guitar playing. Long Afternoon? No, this girl Shin Hae-in was truly a fascinating artist. He felt the song would turn out great. Leaning toward her, he asked if she wanted a beer. She agreed and asked for the first verse of the song. Meanwhile, Lee Yeo-woon was sitting in the library. He was working and worried he'd lose points for a weak argument. He decided to take a break. Getting up and collecting his things, he stepped out of the library. By mid-April, exams would be over, and he'd have more free time. He'd prepare for job applications. And he wanted to drink with Hae-in again, if she had the time. His thoughts were interrupted by a notification. Picking up his phone, he was startled. He had forgotten to mute it. If it had rung in the library, he'd be in trouble. Seeing the message, he already wanted to share it with Hae-in, so he rushed to the subway station. Arriving at the station, he spotted Hae-in and hurried toward her, calling out. She heard him and took out one earbud. Turning his phone screen toward her to show something, Yeo-woon announced they were going to have a music party. The girl looked at him with interest and asked again what kind of music party Lee Yeo-woon was talking about. He said it was like a movie night, but they'd gather to listen to a new song and share their impressions. Thinking for a moment, she said she'd never heard of anyone doing something like that. Yeo-woon sat beside her on the bench. Then he told her that in high school, a friend once invited him to a similar party that featured a performer. Everyone listened to the new song, and then the singer talked about her impressions and how she wrote the lyrics. So why not do something like that themselves? Yeo-woon asked if she had seen the new post by Long Afternoon. The song release was set for April 28th. He suggested they get together at his place to listen to the new track. Hae-in asked what was the point if Long Afternoon wouldn't even be there. The point was for the artist to explain the track. The guy agreed with her, but said they could still have a good time together, maybe even drink a little. Hae-in asked if he really just wanted to drink with her. Yeo-woon immediately jumped up and started denying it. Calming down a bit, he admitted that he needed some excuse to ask her to have a drink together again. Thinking it over, the girl said she'd check her schedule to see if she was free that day. Hae-in opened her calendar. She saw that on April 28th, they were scheduled to record the track for the collaboration with Sung Hyun-jae. Hae-in informed him that it looked like she wouldn't be able to come. She'd be in the studio all night. This disappointed him. But Yeo-woon tried not to show it, saying she didn't need to worry about it. The girl disagreed, saying she'd check if they could move the meeting since she still had some free time. The guy said she didn't need to go through the trouble. He had just spontaneously suggested it out of excitement. Even though Yeo-woon said that, Shin Hae-in was bothered. The guy looked like a little puppy that hadn't been taken out for a walk. There was no helping it. They had spent a long time coordinating schedules with the band, so they couldn't postpone again. Placing a hand on his shoulder as if to comfort him, Hae-in said they could drink together another day. Hugging him with one arm, Hae-in added that you don't need a special reason to drink with a friend. She suggested that once his exams were over and he had free time, she could visit and they could have that drink. A few days later, Yeo-woon was sitting in a classroom taking an exam. Time was up, and they were free to leave. He only had one more assignment next week and then some free time. The exam had been tough. Suddenly, a classmate approached and invited him to hang out with them that day. Yeo-woon said he'd love to, but he had part-time work today. He had already asked off recently, so he couldn't again. But that wasn't the real reason. Today, the new Long Afternoon song was coming out. He couldn't miss that. Even if he and Hae-in couldn't listen together, he still had to enjoy the track on his own. Saying goodbye to his friend, he remembered the song was dropping at 4 p.m. He decided to save it for the end of the day. All the next day, Yeo-woon was filled with anticipation. He couldn't wait to hear the new song from Long Afternoon. As soon as he got home, he put on his headphones to listen peacefully. What would it be like this time? His stomach growled. Ugh, he hadn't even had dinner yet. His boss had given him a small snack, but it didn't help. Yeo-woon decided to order a late-night delivery for a change. Since he just got paid, he'd get some fried chicken. In the order note, he asked them to leave it by the door. He figured he'd take a shower while waiting. Standing under the hot water, he started thinking. It had been a good day, but he still felt lonely. His thoughts were interrupted by the doorbell. Was that the courier already? He had asked them to leave it at the door. He quickly put on underwear and a t-shirt. With a towel on his head, he ran to the front door. Opening it, he saw Hae-in standing there, looking surprised. Yeo-woon asked what she was doing there. She replied that she came to the party. Flustered, Yeo-woon said she had plans. She wasn't supposed to come. Hae-in said she finished earlier than expected and wanted to make it. She even brought some good alcohol. She asked if she was too late. He answered that he had just gotten back from work himself. Suddenly, the girl asked if he always walked around in just his underwear when he was home alone. He had forgotten. Embarrassed, Yeo-woon told her to wait while he got dressed. Hae-in realized he'd been in the shower. While trying to tidy himself up, he realized the place was a mess. He hadn't even taken out the trash. What now? His thoughts were interrupted by Hae-in's voice asking if he could lend her a change of clothes like last time. Taking off her cardigan, she continued that she wanted to shower too, before they started drinking, if he didn't mind. The guy didn't protest and agreed she could use the shower. And just like that, Hae-in was already in the bathroom. Meanwhile, while the girl couldn't see what he was doing, Yeo-woon tidied up a bit and placed a low table on the floor. He was flustered that Hae-in remembered his address. Last time she came on her own, he thought she wouldn't recall it. Maybe in the future, Hae-in would also drop by unannounced. That meant he'd have to clean every day. Yeo-woon didn't want the apartment to smell weird. Maybe he should buy a diffuser. The girl called out to him. Stretching her hand through the slightly open door, she said there were no towels and asked if he could bring one. The guy replied he'd bring one right away and began nervously running around the apartment looking for a clean towel. Eventually finding it, he approached the bathroom door, turned his head away, and handed it to her. When Hae-in closed the door, Yeo-woon let out a deep breath, realizing how nervous he had gotten just handing her a towel. Sitting on the floor, leaning against the couch, the guy decided that in moments like this, he had to stay calm. Turning on a remix of Buddhist chants, Yeo-woon felt peace wash over him. He felt like he was on the verge of enlightenment. Hae-in interrupted him, asking if the shirt he lent her wasn't too big. It felt like it slid off with the slightest movement. She asked if he had anything besides oversized clothes. Then she asked whether, out of respect for his taste, she should stay in what he gave her. Yeo-woon replied he had nothing else. Hae-in responded, telling him not to lie and to just give her something else already. Embarrassed, Yeo-woon agreed. Putting on another one of his sweatshirts, she told him he had pretty broad shoulders. It was comfortable on her. Yeo-woon asked how she had managed to finish all her work so early. She was supposed to be at the studio until night. Hae-in paused, recalling how the recording went and how she wasn't too picky about her singing this time. She hadn't heard the guys in the team wondering if she was rushing it because it wasn't her track. But the result was, as usual, perfect, even though she hurried. Sung Hyun-jae was satisfied. After she finished her part, the man suggested an after-party, but Hae-in declined. The whole band was surprised by her behavior, and Sung Hyun-jae started to think maybe she had a boyfriend now. Returning to her conversation with Yeo-woon, Hae-in said you never know how quickly recording will go. Taking a bottle from the bag beside her, Hae-in suggested they drink before listening to the new song. Seeing the bottle, Yeo-woon noted it was expensive whiskey. Hae-in replied that tonight she was treating him. After taking a sip, the guy didn't expect it to be so strong. The girl was surprised he downed it in one go. Setting down the glasses, Hae-in suggested they start their music night. It was late, so they'd use their phones. The new song was titled Blue Smoke. They played the track at the same time in their headphones. As the song played in their ears, the girl thought about what she had felt while recording the track. She had listened to it countless times during recording. Even though she was tired of it, Hae-in always remembered what she was thinking then. A piece of herself was in that song. The thought that someone in the world was listening to it filled her heart with joy. She wondered how the guy would react and realized she'd be happy with any emotion he felt. Looking at Yeo-woon, the girl thought it would be nice if he did end up liking the song. Yeo-woon was sitting with his knees pulled to his chest, head down. His expression was serious and his eyes teared up. The girl hadn't expected that. She lightly touched his hand and he flinched in surprise. Hae-in asked if he was okay and what he had been thinking. He replied that the lyrics had really struck a chord with him. Regaining his composure, Yeo-woon asked if she liked the new Long Afternoon track. Hae-in didn't know what to say. She said she really liked the acoustic guitar recording. Yeo-woon wanted her opinion as a fellow musician. Hae-in felt lost for words. When he first suggested the party, it felt like a bad idea. But now, sitting there, the girl wanted to drink like there's no tomorrow. She just wanted to have fun. Looking at Hae-in, he again felt the urge to hug her. But what was it that affected him this much? The whiskey or the song? Time passed and the conversation turned to singers. Hae-in was expertly recounting historical stories about the Beatles. Yeo-woon remarked that she must be a huge Beatles fan if she knew all those stories so well. The girl said it was the first pop music her uncle played for her when she was a kid. That's how she began discovering new songs. Later, the old tracks became a cultural shock. At first, she liked the sound, even if she couldn't make out the words. But the more she listened, the more fascinated she became. The voices of people who lived before she was born had been preserved and passed down through time. That's exactly why she wanted to pursue music, so her voice could live on too. Suddenly, the guy asked if Shin Hae-in ever wrote her own songs. He really wanted to hear something from her repertoire. Nervously, the girl replied that she hadn't written a song she liked yet. That disappointed Yeo-woon a little. Raising his glass to his lips, the guy said he was sure her music would be amazing too. In response, Hae-in suggested they make one more special cocktail. Yeo-woon refused anything explosive. Then he added that he had already drunk quite a bit. The new Long Afternoon song was great, and they'd had a good talk. Hae-in asked if he was sleepy. Yeo-woon replied that he had gone to bed late yesterday because of exams. So yes, he was. Without thinking much, the girl rested her head on his thigh and pulled out her phone. Yeo-woon asked what she was doing. Hae-in said she writes a few lines about her day there every day. Then a star appears and the screen turns pretty. Leaning his head toward her, Yeo-woon asked what she was going to write today. Hae-in fell into thought for a moment. Blushing, she said she would write that his thighs were the perfect pillow for her. Yeo-woon asked what that was supposed to mean. Han added that she might write she would sleep on him tonight, like a pillow. In response, Yeo-woon said that then he should hug her while falling asleep. She asked if he was being serious. Though he was telling the truth, he asked if she was scared by that and whether she took his words seriously. The girl replied that he was already tipsy, so she suggested one last drink and then sleep. She was getting sleepy too. Seriously, Yeo-woon said it wasn't because he was drunk. He genuinely wanted to fall asleep in her arms. He asked for her permission. The girl replied, asking if he'd have the courage to do so if she allowed it. Stretching out her arms, Hae-in challenged him to hug her, then added she wouldn't stop him. To her surprise, Yeo-woon jumped into her arms. He crashed into her so forcefully they started to fall over. Lying on the floor, the guy whispered that he was really holding back, but promised not to do anything bad to her. Hae-in was touched by his words. She pulled him close and said he could sleep in her arms. They hugged, lying on the apartment floor. In a moment, Hae-in realized he had fallen asleep. She could hear him softly snoring. Slipping out of his tight embrace, the girl looked at Yeo-woon with tenderness. She didn't want to leave him on the floor. Taking him by the arms, Hae-in dragged him to the bed. It wasn't hard for her. She often moved studio equipment. He made her nervous, and now he had knocked out. She already agreed, but was it okay to fall asleep holding him? Taking off his sweatshirt, the girl lay behind him and wrapped an arm around him. She could smell something pleasant. She liked the scent of the shower gel, the fabric softener on his clothes, and the light trace of alcohol. It was driving her crazy. Hae-in wanted to know how his skin smelled. She slid her hand between him and the bed, clutching his t-shirt. But Shin Hae-in hadn't even told him that long afternoon was her. She hadn't opened up to Yeo-woon completely. Was it okay for Hae-in to hide and watch his reactions while silently growing attached to Yeo-woon? Maybe it wasn't Yeo-woon who lacked the courage to hold her, but the alien girl hiding Hae-in's true identity. Waking up in the morning, the guy had a headache. He asked himself how much they had drunk last night. He couldn't remember how he ended up in bed. He only recalled Hae-in talking about the Beatles. What happened after? He thought she had already gone home, so he decided to go back to sleep. Yeo-woon hugged the blanket lying next to him. Suddenly, he felt it was too firm. Yeo-woon fumbled with the blanket, not understanding what was under it. Suddenly, Hae-in peeked out from one end of the blanket, having just opened her eyes and confused by the situation. It startled Yeo-woon. He didn't expect the girl to be in his bed, let alone wrapped so tightly in the blanket. Fixing her hair, the girl asked if he slept well next to her and if it wasn't too cramped with her in the bed. A little later, Yeo-woon was standing by the stove cooking ramen. Hae-in, sitting on the floor, was drying her hair. The guy still couldn't get over it. Did he really sleep with Hae-in in the same bed last night? He worried he had gotten drunk again and done something weird. But his thoughts were interrupted by the girl calling him. Hae-in asked what plans he had for today and if he was busy. Yeo-woon replied he just had part-time work. Then he added that he'd spend the rest of the day at home finishing some assignments. He set out bowls for ramen. The girl smiled and said that was great. He'd finally get to rest. Yesterday, he looked very tired. Approaching Yeo-woon to grab her portion, Hae-in added that she'd eat and leave. She had a client coming at 1 o'clock. In response, he offered for her to stay until then. He didn't mind if Hae-in stuck around a bit longer. Taking the hot ramen bowl, the girl asked why. Maybe he still wanted to spend more time with her? Sitting next to her, the guy asked if it wasn't exhausting, going home only to head back to the studio again. Hae-in replied that she needed to go home to rest properly, and besides, she wanted to change clothes. Then she added that she didn't mean she didn't like being at his place. His home was closer to the studio than hers. Yeo-woon thought to himself, if he lived closer to the studio, maybe he could suggest she come by during her free time. Then he wondered, what reason would Hae-in have to drop by without a good excuse? He had nothing to offer. The girl's voice broke his thoughts. She asked if he did any sports. It caught him completely off guard. He said that on weekdays, he worked out at home or went running in the morning. He used to go to a gym before. Smiling, Hae-in said she figured as much. Yeo-woon asked why she asked that so suddenly. In turn, the girl said she had noticed he was in good shape when they hugged last night. She continued, saying that when he hugged her, she felt like his body was made of stone, and his arms were strong. Yeo-woon couldn't wrap his head around the fact that he didn't remember hugging her. Hae-in asked if he really didn't recall. She told him that last night he suddenly hugged her and said he was holding himself back. At the time, she thought she wouldn't be able to sleep. Then the guy asked if she was joking again, but the girl replied it really happened and she was telling the truth. Hae-in added that he fell asleep first, and then she did too. Yeo-woon began apologizing, saying he must have had too much to drink. Hae-in said there was no need. She actually liked it. She had never hugged someone so tightly in her life. She realized the human body was much stronger than she had thought. Hae-in repeated that he shouldn't worry about it. After the girl went home, Yeo-woon immediately went out for a run. Lately, he hadn't exercised due to studying. His body probably wasn't in the same shape as before. So this was all to maintain his health and fitness. It definitely wasn't because of Hae-in's words, not because he wanted to impress her, though it would be great if she noticed. After a short break, Yeo-woon decided to run another lap and then head home to work on his torso. Meanwhile, Hae-in was sitting in her uncle's studio. Humming a melody, she was sketching something on her tablet. One of the characters reminded her of Yeo-woon. She wondered if she should include him in the drawing for her Instagram. Han Ki-hoon, the lead guitarist from Long Afternoon, approached the front desk. His sudden appearance startled her. Hae-in asked why they had come so unexpectedly. The guy replied they had booked the hall for their band. Ki-hoon said that yesterday, after she left, Sung Hyun-jae paid for dinner and they had an after-party. He continued, saying the producer had asked to find out if Hae-in would be willing to record a live clip of their collaboration. Hae-in didn't expect this. Ki-hoon added that if she didn't want to show her face, the video could be edited accordingly. What held the girl back was that she still hadn't told Yeo-woon that she was Long Afternoon. She didn't want to break his trust. She decided to leave it for later, saying she'd think about it if her face wasn't shown in the video. Toward the evening, Afternoon headed to his night shift. He had overdone it during training, so now his muscles ached. But he was happy that the day was full. He had breakfast with Hae-in, worked out, and even listened to a new song. Arriving at the cafe, he expected to see the owner, but instead, only the daytime worker was there. After changing into his uniform, the guy stepped into the work area and told his coworker she could head home. He added that he would tell the owner her shift was over. To this, the girl replied the owner wouldn't be in tonight. One Shin Young informed him the owner wasn't feeling well and had gone to the hospital with a high fever. Lastly, the girl said she would stay with him until the end of his shift so it wouldn't be too hard on him. Yeo-woon decided to call the boss to check if she was okay. Oh-yoo-ju answered and said everything was fine. Then she asked if he needed help. He replied that Shin Young had stayed to assist him. The owner was impressed by the girl's dedication and said she should stay as long as she could. Ending the call, Yeo-woon went up to Shin Young and said the boss would pay her a bonus so she could stay. Hearing the girl agree, the guy said she could watch the register while he took out the trash. Yeo-woon was just about to leave, but the assistant asked if he was a fourth-year university student. Then she asked if they could switch to informal speech. They weren't that far apart in age, she was 23. As he took out the trash, the guy thought that even though they only worked together today, she was already speaking casually. He used to communicate with people without worrying how long it would last or how often they'd see each other. Since when had Yeo-woon started measuring the duration of relationships and calculating the right distance to keep? Returning to the cafe, Shin Young told him there was a delivery order for 15 drinks and sandwiches. The girl added that all the drinks were different. She asked him to help with the sandwiches so they could manage everything. The guy didn't understand why someone would order everything different. Luckily, Shin Young had stayed to help. Even though the girl hadn't been working long, she was quite skilled at her job and very responsible too. The days were getting longer and the number of visitors kept increasing. Yeo-woon was exhausted and was about to close up the cafe. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this review, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new video. Let me know in the comments what you thought of this story and what manhwa you'd like to see next. See you in the next installment.